Good afternoon, everyone. We have a full house here at UT RGV. Welcome, everyone. My name is Matt Ewalt. I serve the Texas Tribune as Senior Director of Events and Live Journalism. Welcome to those joining us in person here in Brownsville and those joining us online from around the state for a conversation titled Preparing the Next Generation of RGV Workers, discussing how to prepare the region's young people for the homegrown jobs of the future. Our program today will run approximately 1 hour with 45 minutes for moderated conversation and 15 minutes for your questions. To get to as many questions as possible, you can submit questions through our Q&A portal at texastribune.org/ask. You will also find a QR code on your printed program at your table. You can submit as many questions as you'd like, include your name, where you're from, and we'll get to as many questions as we can. And if you're old school and just want to write it down on a note card, raise your hand during the program and I'll come find you. A note that today's conversation is eligible for continuing professional education credits for Texas educators. Through the Association of Texas Professional Educators, you can learn more by visiting atpe.org/tribune. We are grateful for the support of our sponsors. Our major sponsors for today's program are Methodist Healthcare Ministries, Raise Your Hand Texas, Brownsville Community Improvement Corporation, Greater Brownsville Incentives Corporation, Educate Texas, DHR Health, and Texas State Technical College. Our supporting sponsors are Visit Brownsville and Valley Baptist Health System, and an additional shout out to Visit Brownsville for helping us host our coffee and conversation at Jolie Petit today. Please note that while sponsorship provides critical support for the Tribune, sponsors play no role in programming or the line of questioning for Tribune events. We want to thank our host, the University of Texas at Rio Grande Valley, for hosting us for today's conversation, and here to offer a welcome on behalf of UT RGV is President Guy Bailey.
I think, yeah, this mic works. Okay, good. That means I don't have to go over there. I want to welcome you to UT RGV on behalf of all of our faculty, staff, and our students. You're on the most beautiful campus in the state of Texas right now. I've been on all of them. I assure you there is not a campus this beautiful. It's a wonderful place, and welcome. We're glad to have you here. You know, UT RGV is now in its 11th year. And when I was named president 11 years ago, 2014, my first appearance was right here in this room, And 11 years ago, I don't think any of us dreamed that UT RGV would be what it is right now. And we're very fortunate to have had great support from our communities, our faculty, and our staff. And it's really become truly a special place. I've lived all over the country, been at universities all over the country, but never one that's made this kind of progress, that's doing the kinds of things we're doing. So thank you for all you do in supporting us. Welcome to UT RGV, and I look forward to this panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, President Bailey. Thank you also to those here and around the state who make the journalism of the Tribune, including events like this, possible by becoming Texas Tribune members. We are in the middle of a fall member drive with a goal of 500 new members. We're getting there and would love to have your support as part of that drive. To learn more and to become a member, you can visit texastribune.org/support. And in 2 months, we will convene in downtown Austin for the Texas Tribune Festival. We invite you to step inside conversations shaping, indeed, the future of education, the economy, healthcare, energy, technology, arts and culture, and much, much more, all with those who are driving the decisions in Texas and across the nation. You can learn more and purchase tickets at tribfest.org. And now let's get to today's conversation by meeting our panel. You all know President Bailey. Guy Bailey is the founding president of the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. Since 2014, he has led UT-RGV to become one of the nation's most affordable and high-performing universities with dramatic gains in enrollment, retention, research, and philanthropy. Andrea Figueroa Benton is the Director of Community Relations at NextDecade Corporation. She leads stakeholder engagement and builds strong community partnerships that support inclusive growth and local impact. And State Board of Education member L.J. Francis was elected in November 2022, representing the citizens of South Texas. He's committed to championing parents' rights in educating their children while working with teachers and administrators to meet the education and workforce needs of Texas by strengthening our career and technical educational and higher ed partnerships. Gilberto Salinas is president and CEO of Greater Brownsville Incentives Corporation. GBIC is Brownsville's powerhouse economic development organization, leading economic growth through strategic partnerships and tailored resources for businesses and the community. And Matthew Watkins, our moderator today, began serving as editor-in-chief of the Texas Tribune last September and has been with the Tribune since 2015 in various leadership roles. I thank our audience and our panelists for joining us today, and with that, I turn the program over to Matthew.
All right, thank you, Matt, and thank you to our panelists for being here. I'm looking forward to this conversation. We've been in the Rio Grande Valley for a few days now and had a lot of conversations with people particularly focused on the economy. And I would say the number one takeaway from that, not surprising news as people who pay attention to what's going on in Texas, is just the astounding growth that this region has seen over the last few decades, and this particularly in recent years, with Brownsville really feeling like taking the lead in that. With, we talk about LNG developments, and we'll get into that a little bit more, SpaceX, but also many other companies and businesses growing and everything like that. The other thing that I've heard, though, the other constant theme has been questions of workforce, right? Both how do we show the companies that might benefit from moving here that this region has the workers that can supply and cause their businesses to thrive? And also, how can we prepare the students who are here, the people who are growing up here, for these next generation jobs that are emerging and growing in this region as well? And so we've got a great panel here of people from kind of all different points of access on that, from K through 12 to higher education to the companies that are actually doing that hiring to the people who are bringing these companies here. And I'm excited to talk about all those different perspectives. But Gil, I want to start with you because you have done a lot of that work to bring companies to this region. You talk to a lot of groups and things like that. I'm wondering if you could just kind of start off by telling us a little bit about what these companies say they want and need. What are the questions they're asking you about Brownsville and the workforce opportunities that are here?
Okay. Thank you, Matthew. First of all, thank you to you and the Tribune for visiting us here in Brownsville, Texas. And I'll echo what Dr. Bailey said, is the most beautiful campus in the state of Texas, for sure. So when companies are looking at locating a specific area, it used to be back in the days that it was all driven by geography or incentives. But as of the last 7-8 years, there's been a switch. And now it's all about workforce. What kind of workforce do you have? What are the skill sets that you have? And what are the training institutions or higher education institutions that you have to train that workforce? For the most part, we've got just about everything covered. When they come in, and this is usually manufacturing, tech, these companies that provide these high value add jobs. So that's in the space that we work with as far as economic development. And one of the things that they look at is okay, your engineers, what kind of skills do they have coming out of the university? One of the things that they look for are internships. Have they had an internship or hands-on experience? And usually when a company comes in, university graduates, it could be anywhere between 5 to 20% of their workforce is going to come from a university. That's on the manufacturing, industrial, and tech side. The other 40 to 50% is usually coming from a community college, which we have several here in the Rio Grande Valley. And they're looking for a different skill set there. They're looking more for certifications and hands-on experience. And then the other 20% are entry-level positions. Coming back to the higher skill set, the one thing that I've noticed now companies coming in is not only, yes, are they coming out with high grades, for lack of a better description, are they bookworms, right? Do they know how to follow instructions, The one thing that they're looking for is what can they do with their hands? And that's been very different from years past. Now it's like, you're an engineer, mechanical or electrical engineer. Can you actually work with your hands? Can you actually come out of the AC, right, from your desk and go into the manufacturing floor? And that part that you designed, do you actually know how to install it? That's what they're looking for now. I'm going to use my youngest son as an example. In talking with SpaceX, and I don't speak on behalf of SpaceX, but I advocate for everything that happens in Brownsville as far as industry. And the one thing that we've noticed with SpaceX is they said some of the best employees that we have are the ones that come out of the university, and they actually know how to weld. And to me, it's like, weld? I'm like, well, yeah, it's like that's exactly what they do. They hire a lot of welders, no different than LNG, right? LNG plants also have a lot of welders and solderers. So I told my son, okay, so the game has changed for you. Just this happens to be the generation that you're in. And he happens to be a gearhead. So he's got a Mustang, right? So he loves his car. He knows auto mechanics. He, learned it from me, actually. And so now he's working in a hot rod shop, learning how to weld. Because that's what industry is looking for. It's like, not only can you build it, not only can you design it on your computer, I know you can graduate from the university, but what can you do with your hands? So you have to get them started early on. Coming back to the SpaceX, they said, can you grab that part and put it on the actual rocket? Do you know how it fits? Do you know how to do all these things? So the game has really changed in the last few years as far as what companies are looking for. The middle skill set, which is the vast majority of what a lot of these manufacturers are looking for, in addition to UT-RGV, we've got a TSC, TSCC, and Texas A&M also has a presence. Can't believe I said Texas A&M. I'm a Longhorn. And Matthew, take it easy.
All right.
He's an Aggie. We were talking about that last night.
We managed to get along okay at dinner anyways.
From your point of view. So they've come in and they've done a fantastic job as far as helping develop that pipeline of that middle skill set, which are the certifications, which these two powerhouse enterprises, which is SpaceX and the LNG plant that's under construction right now. They're requiring a lot of employees from the area, which means a lot of opportunity. That being said, it's not a given. Our workforce has to go through that training to be able to qualify for some of these very high value add jobs.
LJ, one of the, I think, lesser told stories, at least around the state, I think people outside this region might not know to the extent they should, is some of the success that the K through 12 schools are having in this region. In the way the state measures the success of school districts and schools, Rio Grande Valley schools do quite well, and I'll read a couple stats to make that case. In this region, the region, TEA region that we are in right now, 95% of school districts score an A or B in those ratings compared to 87% statewide. That's an impressive thing considering some of the challenges that these school districts face with students who maybe come from poverty or who don't speak English as their first language. But in those students in particular, 30% of high poverty schools in this region received an A rating. That's more than double the rate for high poverty schools across the state, or actually a little less than double, but right around double for that. I'm wondering, what are you, as someone who pays a lot of attention to what is happening in these schools, what are you seeing in the Rio Grande Valley, the work that the schools are doing? How are they able to accomplish these metrics?
Thanks, Matthew, for having me, and to the beautiful people of Brownsville, thanks for being so welcoming to me again. When I tour schools, Matthew, the one thing that is really the key indicator is our educators. They are some of the most dedicated educators I've seen to their jobs, And the other big thing that we can't take for granted is parental involvement. As we know in our community, the Rio Grande Valley, we are very family-oriented, and that ultimately determines the success or not of the student. So regardless of the background, once they enter those doors, every student, gets fed and is ready for the classroom. And I just think that also one thing that needs to be mentioned, and sometimes we take it for granted, but I've traveled the state in my district tour, and there is no place like the Rio Grande Valley that does collaboration better. You have ISDs collaborating with charter schools, with universities, and I think that this holistic approach to student success is what drives and has the Rio Grande Valley stand out all the time in accountability ratings.
Tell me a little bit more about that collaboration. It was mentioned in the intro too, something that you've really supported and pushed for. What are these collaborations? What are their goals, and what are they accomplishing?
Sure. So one thing that I have been instrumental in is the Rural Zone Innovation Program, where, as you know, CTE, career and technical education, is very important down here in the Valley because of where we're positioned and the types of industries that we'll learn shortly that we attract here. So a school, and as we know, sometimes they are low income and they may be very small schools in rural areas, can't afford to offer as much CTE courses as is required. So the partnership between another school and what they'll do is they'll decide which school offer a particular set of courses and just transfer the students depending on student interests. So that's a really big thing, and just happy to report this year we saw an increase from the legislature on the amount of monies that goes into that program.
One of the things that has come up, I think, in the past in this region is the idea of seeing some of the most talented students leave for college, and then life happens and maybe they don't come back, right? They find a job around where their school, university was, they get married, have kids, and all of a sudden you have those roots and it's hard to get back home, even if they might want to. President Bailey, UTRGV, I think, is maybe the most prominent tool in trying to kind of keep those students rooted in this region. You mentioned 10 years in. Tell us a little bit about how that's going so far.
You know, it's interesting because when I started here, I heard from parents all over the valley, help us keep our kids here. And so, in fact, one of them, my wife right there, wanted help us keep our kids here. And so it's what we tried to do was look at programs we could implement, look at ways of creative scholarshiping students to provide them with educations that would help them stay here. Part of the problem is that we didn't have many professional or graduate programs. So if you wanted to be a physical therapist, for example, and now you can take physical therapy at UTRGV starting this fall. If you wanted to be a doctor or podiatric, if you wanted to go into podiatric medicine, you had to go elsewhere. And when people go elsewhere, they meet spouses, they put down roots, they often don't come back. So the first thing we did was begin offering very high quality advanced programs. So we have doctorates in engineering now and in a number of different areas. We have, as I mentioned, physical therapy, optometry starts in 2027. All of these are designed to help keep kids here to do their professional degrees, advanced degrees, but beyond that, they meet a significant workforce need in the Valley. Healthcare workers, whether it's nurses or internists, are in great demand here. And so we can meet that need, and we can meet that need with our own kids and keep our kids right here in the Rio Grande Valley. And then we've done some creative scholarshiping, and I was mentioning to you last night about our luminary scholarships, and we were fortunate to get a $40 million gift that we used to create an endowment to provide scholarships for students. And these scholarships are for the very best, most talented students we can find. And it works like this. You go through a very long process of interviews and applications, and when you get the scholarship, you are pre-admitted to the professional or graduate program of your choice. That includes School of Medicine. And so now you have to meet benchmarks as an undergraduate, but you're pre-admitted to that program. Think about this. Then you have a full scholarship for your undergraduate years, all tuition, all mandatory fees paid, plus a couple of years of housing as well. But here's the kicker. Once you graduate and you start, let's say, to medical school, this scholarship also pays for all 4 years of your medical education. Do you know any doctors who've graduated from medical school without debt? Ours will be able to do that and are doing so right now because of the Luminary Scholarship Fund. Now, there's a catch, right? And here's the catch. If you accept that scholarship, you have to commit to us that you'll live and work in the Rio Grande Valley for the number of years we've supported you. And hey, if that's not a good way to keep our best and brightest here, I don't know what is. So that's a very important thing, providing the right opportunities and providing the incentives for our best and brightest to stay right here in the Rio Grande Valley.
And of course, what will likely soon become, if not one of the biggest employer in this region will be this LNG development. And I know when we talked earlier ahead of this panel, you talked a lot, Andrea, about the effort and the push to make sure that, a good number of these jobs will be going to people from this community. Can you talk a little bit about the work you've done in that realm?
Yes, of course, Matthew, and thank you so much for having me today. I'm very happy to be in my old stomping grounds. I graduated from my undergrad and MBA from this institution, so I'm very proud to be here today. And so NextDecade, since the start, our commitment to the community with the Rio Grande LNG project was to have at least 35% local workforce in the project. And we are very fortunate to have a very good partner for engineering, procurement, and construction, Bechtel, and together with NextDecade. Today, we have more than 4,500 employees at the site, and more than 70% of those are local. And the way we define local is a 100-mile radius from the site, so that goes all the way beyond Mission, Edinburgh, Raymondville. So it covers a large area of the Rio Grande Valley and multiple counties. And so part of the work that we're doing to continue with this commitment is that we have a community advisory board that has an education subcommittee where we make sure we engage with education stakeholders, and so that we have feedback and communication about what to expect in the LNG industry. At the same time, we support scholarships. Just recently, we awarded 25 scholarships to Rio Grande Valley students in partnership with Star Scholarship Fund. This is the second year in a row that we do this. And I think it was Gilbert or LJ that mentioned, family-oriented students. That's what makes them successful. So when we award these scholarships, we invite those students for a breakfast. It's kind of like a mini open house where we talk to them about the project, what LNG is, NextDecade, and Rio Grande LNG. And those students bring their parents, bring their best friends, and they're very proud to receive this scholarship. We actually have students that received it twice in a row. So we'll continue to do initiatives like this. And we want those students to learn about this industry so that they can get excited and maybe pursue. And the reason is that these students are STEM-based majors. So we have engineering students, and half of those are female. So we also want to have a good balance of male and female recipients. At the same time, our corporate office has a very good internship program where our focus is to recruit Rio Grande LNG's Rio Grande Valley students. And we just this past summer, we had 8 students from the Rio Grande Valley that collaborated and provided their knowledge and expertise. And some of them were UTRGV students. So we continue to do this because we want to nurture that workforce. We want to continue educating the community through LNG safety demonstrations, open houses. We know that LNG is fairly new to our community, so we want the community to know what it is so they can pursue those careers.
I'm going to add to that real quick. She mentioned local, and that's one thing that we've, in our shop in economic development, we've had to kind of adjust a little because, again, the SpaceX, the LNG plant, and some of these major companies that are looking at coming in, their definition of local is a 100-mile radius, which is from here to McAllen, the shoulders, everything around it. Our definition is anything south of FM 511. That's local, right? But so we've had to kind of learn to embrace the entire Rio Grande Valley because that is the workforce pool that these major companies are looking for.
I wonder if you could put aside your business leader hat and put on your sort of local student hat and just talk a little bit about your experience, what you see around in terms of, you know, what is the pull for talented young students, like I can only assume that you were while a student here, about, you know, thinking through the idea of, do I want to leave for school? Do I want to leave for my job afterward? And what's pulling you here, and what might be pulling folks who are going away to go away?
Yes, I think that can apply to students and also to former students that are from here, where, we can see, because we have 70% local workforce at the site, not only is workforce available, but it is thriving here given the right opportunity. So I think the students here are starting to see that I don't have to leave to have a great opportunity with great benefits or in a career that interests me. They're starting to see that is available here, not just through our project, but through other projects like Gilbert was mentioning.
President Bailey, we talked a little bit last night about engineering students, obviously a field that is in very high demand. And there are people from not just the Rio Grande Valley, but all over Texas and probably beyond that are interested in some of the students you're putting out. How do you think of this as a university that serves this region, but also, I'm sure, thinks beyond it as well?
Yeah, through our engineering programs, we serve the entire state of Texas. We have over 5,000 students in engineering. I want you to think about that. We have 35,000 students, including graduate professional students. 5,000 plus of those are going into engineering. Now, unfortunately, right now in the Rio Grande Valley, we won't have 5,000 engineering jobs. If they keep expanding with NextDecade and others, we might. But until that happens, we send students all over the state. The governor congratulated me last December on helping fill the need for engineers in the city of Houston, because we send a lot of kids up to Houston. If you go to Houston, San Antonio, you go to Austin, you'll find so many kids who were educated right down here, got their engineering degrees here, and are working there. So we know we contribute to the state's economy that way as well. And again, we'll help all of the EDCs in getting businesses located here, because we want the jobs for them right here. And we have our kids are well trained in mathematics and do well in engineering. They're well prepared in the public schools, and so we're producing great engineers, just need more jobs for them.
And I'll add to what Dr. Bailey was saying is 20 plus years ago, we did not have that option here in Brownsville. The predecessor of UT-RGV, it was UT Brownsville, and that was in the early 90s. But before then, you wanted to get an engineering degree, you had to go elsewhere. That being said, the companies were not here as well to provide that demand for those students. So I think it shows you that we've come a long way since, but we still have a ways to go. So the fact that I hear that there's 5,000 plus engineering students, I mean, to me, thinking about 20 plus years ago, that's magical now today.
Well, I mean, it seems like, oh, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Matthew. I just wanted to add to this conversation. As a licensed professional engineer myself, talking with industry and at the universities, one thing that we're seeing is that students, they're not sometimes aware of the opportunities, even though they exist. So that's something that my office is trying to do better with, and the State Board of Education at large, is to put students in communication directly through the independent school districts and charter schools with the employers. The other thing that we have to take into consideration also that affects the pipeline for engineers to industries is the fact that we're right now on a downward trend for student performance in mathematics. Actually, I'm chairing a special committee to help solve this issue at the state level, and I've been traveling my district to figure out ways that educators think that we should go about, retooling how we teach math. But when they get to the college after high school, what I'm hearing from those administrators at the higher ed is that they're not ready to take those classes. So we're having students behind a year to a year and a half because they're not ready to take that Calculus 1, Calculus 2 that's important for engineering.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. I mean, what are some of the solutions do you see towards addressing that? What can be some of the things the state and the local districts can do to? You can't decide in 12th grade that you're going to be an engineer, right? You need to be building that base up from the beginning.
So there's several things that are happening sort of simultaneously, Matthew. One of the things that was legislated recently was the accelerated math program. So now we're providing a pathway for students to take Algebra 1 by the 8th grade. And the sooner they take those advanced courses, it'll leave them enough time to take more advanced courses before they graduate. So that's one solution. The other is, I know that so Texas College does a very good job of this, is targeting middle school. So from that level, just educating them with the options that are available so that they become interested. And they also learn the options that exist, because sometimes the students just simply don't know that, and even in engineering, there's so many different pathways that you could take as well. On the state level as well, we have recently, since I've been elected, offered new programs of study. For the first time, we have an engineering program of study. A program of study is just a series of courses that the student will take, and that will show on their high school diploma. So we're looking at every angle that we can, and I'm always traveling, talking to educators to learn more.
Andrea, as we talk about the some of the factors here, I do kind of get like a chicken and the egg type situation in my head, right? Is when we talk about the students and their needs and staying here, we talk about how they need to know that there's jobs for them here. And then when we talk about the companies that might relocate here, they need to know that the workforce is going to be here to fill the positions that they need. And you almost sort of need those two things to be building on each other to get really real momentum. It seems like things like SpaceX, like NextDecade could help with that. But I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the process of bringing something like this LNG plant to this region. What were the factors that were being considered? What was being discussed? I mean, I'd imagine some of it is geography, but just what went through local leaders, the business's mind in terms of, okay, this is where we want to be to do this work?
I wasn't here in the company back then, but what I can tell you is that the company knew that the Rio Grande Valley had a very prepared workforce, through research information that was available at that time. You gotta know, like, this project was proposed since before 2015, so it's been a long time since then. But what we are doing now to continue is we are aware that educating students, since they're young, to know about these types of careers and for their parents to know about it and support them. So through our open houses, we've had more than 32 open houses since 2023, before construction began of Rio Grande LNG. And we've reached more than 5,000 people. From those, 4,000 have been students. We have been in school gyms here in the university, and different locations available to the public and the students so that they can learn about the project and the opportunities that are available. And also our partners, Bechtel with the construction, they do a lot of recruiting and career fairs. Bechtel just today had an event for females that are interested in craft careers, and I believe they had more than 500 female applicants today, so.
Very nice.
I can, because I was here when dinosaurs roamed the earth. So it was 2011 when we started working this small project by the name of SpaceX. And then a year later, not even a year later, I think it was like 6-7 months later, we have the first LNG plant, knock on our door and say, we're looking at building this multi-billion-dollar plant. And then like a few weeks later, another one came in, and I remember back then there was 3 LNG plants, and we're working the SpaceX project, and back then also another aerospace company, and we're like, wow, projects are just falling from the sky. Huge projects, but the common denominator between both the SpaceX and in this case with NextDecade was, it was all driven by geography, and also the fact that it was in Texas. Texas being a wide open business kind of state. The geography for the SpaceX, they needed to be in a place that was as close as possible to the equator in order to launch in an easterly direction, so on and so forth. They just needed to be the southernmost point in the United States. So it was southern Texas, Georgia was also in play, Florida being Florida, and then Puerto Rico. So it was geography, and then the fact that we're in Texas. Then other factors came into play. The LNGs was, the gas fracking at the Eagle Ford Shell, and having a port, a deep water port where they could export from. So Brownsville was in play. I want to say Corpus was in play back then. So that it was driven by that. Workforce was not the main driver. Both of those projects were build it and they will come. But lo and behold, we already had programs back then that were involved early on to provide at least the initial workforce, the talent that they were going to need for both operations. I remember with UT Brownsville back then, now UT RGV, there was an astrophysics program, which I did not know of. But when we found out, it's like, well, hey, Elon, we have an astrophysics program. So that helped, right? Then that grew, and then the engineering program really took off after that. And same with the LNG plants. Now, working with the university and the community colleges, developing that pipeline of talent. However, what we have also seen is, because build it and they will come, we are seeing people move into the region, into the community, specifically the greater Brownsville area. And I will say this, Californians are moving into Brownsville. Californians are now moving into this area, which who would have thought, right? But it's happening. So don't California my Texas.
Yeah, I was going to say, as an Austin resident, be careful what you wish for. But
careful what you ask for, exactly.
President Bailey, I wonder, SpaceX in particular, I think, occupies a large part in the national imagination, both because, of course, space is an interesting and an exciting thing to be working on and thinking about. Of course, the owner, Elon Musk, very high profile in a lot of ways. What is the arrival and growth of this company done for UTRGV?
Yeah, I think I can, a couple of very quick things. We now have a doctoral program in physics. We have a PhD in physics, right? We started with it. When they came here, suddenly the demand for physicists increases dramatically, and for advanced training in physics. We have math and statistics, PhD, and so if you look at the demand for those kinds of that kind of advanced training, it immediately has transformed how we do education in the institution, what programs we have. So we know that as the LNG and as SpaceX grow, that kind of advanced training will be in great demand. So we'll supply that. We're committed to supply that. So it's had an immediate impact on the kinds of new programs we've begun to implement.
Okay, I always like to ask toward the end of these conversations, the sort of what I call the magic wand question, which is, if I gave you a magic wand and you could use it one time to do one thing to move, your goals forward, particularly related to the workforce development, economic growth in this region, or in your school or company or anything like that, what would you do? And I'm curious in hearing the perspective of everyone here on stage of if you could make one thing happen that could get things going, or even further accelerate, what would you choose? And I'll start here with you and see if we can move down.
Ooh, the quick Band-Aid right now. We don't have a housing situation yet. I mean, there's still inventory out there, but it's getting snatched up very quickly. So just more housing, because we see the influx of people coming in, new employees. The fabric of this area, it's still, Brownsville and the Rio Grande Valley, but it's just new people coming in. So if the quick one is that. The long-term one, I'm gonna use two ones. The long-term one would be, there's just so much talent out there, and this is more of a wish. Again, our educational institutions have done a fantastic job, but there's so many people that are from the Brownsville or the Rio Grande Valley area working outside, not just outside of the valley, but outside of the state, that now there's an opportunity for you all to come back home. And we see a little bit of that, but if we can bring some of that talent back home, that would be the cherry on top.
How about you?
And I would just say, with that magic wand, I would replicate what educators are doing here in the Valley throughout the entire state. If we could do that, we would see so much growth in student achievement, and really, whoever is in the education field, we're passionate about kids, we're passionate to see them succeed. And there are several barriers to that, but I think, and I know, because I've traveled this area, I've been down here ever since I got elected, that the educators here are so committed. Their approach to collaboration is so unique, and I wish the entire state would follow in my district's footsteps.
Yeah, I will say when I talk to people in a lot of cities around the state, I've had this conversation in Fort Worth, I've had it in Austin, talking to statewide policy folks, I think that there is an impression in some places that demographics is destiny for schools, and if you're dealing with a lower income population, or you're dealing with a certain vulnerable population, that you're necessarily not going to do as well in the school rankings. And a lot of times what folks say is, look at the Rio Grande Valley, that shows that that's not true. There are a lot of districts doing success there. So, and
I think it's just the attitude with administrators. I know that when the legislative session ends, there's a lot of new demands on educators. And of course, when my board meets, there are some things that are new that must be adhered to. But the attitude towards newness from these administrators is just so refreshing. They're like, we're gonna do whatever we need to do for kids. And I think that is where we all need to be.
Excellent. All right, pass that magic wand on down the row here.
Thank you. So one thing is, we have been very fortunate to have bipartisan support from Texas elected officials at the local, state, and federal level. And that is really what has pushed forward our project, Rio Grande LNG. So I would say to encourage those elected officials to continue pursuing and supporting regulatory policies that support our industry in general, not just our project, because that is what is going to encourage economic development in this region and support the workforce and the student pipeline.
President Bailey, how about you?
Thank you. Opportunities for our students, and in the university, we can create opportunities. So, for example, in our medical school, we not only produce doctors, people with MDs, but we hire faculty to teach and to practice. And so bringing those students who we granted MDs back to the Valley to practice and to be our faculty members is one way we create opportunities. We want to work with all of the cities across the valley to bring in more companies that will hire engineers, more companies that need computer science. We have a PhD in computer science now. More companies that need mathematicians, statisticians. We can produce, and we are producing a very high quality workforce that can do tremendous things. We just need the opportunities to keep them here. Some of those opportunities we can create in UTRGV. In other cases, you know, we're the partner for the cities that'll help make that happen.
Yeah, your university, of course, has a footprint across the valley.
That's right.
One of the other things I've heard several times since I've been down here is this idea of, you know, the old, I think it's been phrased, the Friday Night Lights mentality, right? The different high schools, the different jurisdictions, there's some competition there. There's obviously a lot of politics. How do you feel like this region is doing right now in terms of that collaborative approach?
You know, I think it's turning a corner, and it's a hard thing because if you've been overlooked for a long time, when you get something, you want to keep it and make it yours. And so that's perfectly understandable. But I think people are beginning to see a bigger picture that together we can do a whole lot more than we can individually. So we've seen a lot of this. At UTRGV, one of the things we've understood is that we have resources. We built over $800 million in new buildings or renovated new buildings. We've tried to do that all across the Rio Grande Valley. So the largest investments here in Brownsville, but we've had significant investments in Harlingen, in Weslaco, in McAllen, Edinburgh, all across the valley. And so we understand that we really can't reach our potential as a university without the support of the entire Rio Grande Valley. And to do that, we have to show the valley that we support them, and we have to make the investments across the valley.
You know, and I think that's a great point. I think the valley has really come a long way, and the reason we're seeing some of this success today is because of that notion of convening. You know, we've really now learned to flex our muscles and use the power of convening, which is bringing everybody to the table to get a project done. When dinosaurs roamed the earth, that was not the case. It was Friday night mentality. It was Texas A&M, or Texas OU. But today, yeah, it's and the companies are looking for that. They're looking for that kind of support. So yeah, I think that's a testament to where we've come from and where we're at today.
Yeah, as an Aggie who lives in Austin, I can attest to the idea that you can get along Monday through Friday and then, you know, fight on Saturday.
Ouch.
All right, Matt, we do have some audience questions.
We do, and just a reminder for folks who are joining us online and in person, you can submit questions at texastribune.org/ask. There's also that QR code here on the program, but we do have some great questions that have come in. We have one from Catherine who would like to hear thoughts about the way bilingualism plays into preparing the next generation of RGV workers.
I'm sorry, the way what?
Bilingualism.
Bilingual.
I'll just start it off because I was looking at some stats from the Texas Comptroller's office and the TEA data, and actually we here in the Rio Grande Valley produce the most certified teachers in emergent bilingual that in terms of in comparison to the state. So and those kids, when you go into the bilingual classroom, what we're seeing is that they're outperforming their peers who are just receiving instruction in English. So right now we're in the valley, we're in Brownsville, and we have multinational companies that you do need to be able to speak the second language fluently. So that puts our kids at a greater opportunity to get these jobs, to secure these jobs, and also be an example to their peers as well.
You know, it's interesting. Many of our kids in the valley, and many of the adults know both English and Spanish. Now think about this. If you know both of those languages, you know 2 of the 3 most widely spoken languages in the world. Think about that. What an asset if you know 2 of the 3 most widely spoken languages. Hey, that's one of the biggest assets we have. Our students often bring it with them. People who grow up here learn it, and it's hard to overestimate that as an asset.
A lot of students might choose to study elsewhere because they might see college as the only opportunity to experience a place outside the Valley. Is there a possibility of creating programs similar to study abroad, through which students could live elsewhere while keeping them anchored in the region?
Well, we do have some of those programs, and we'd like to create more through things like internship, but Veronica Gonzalez is right here, and we have an internship program with our legislators in Austin. So we send, 11 interns every legislative session to live in Austin, some of whom never been there before, and they live there, spend an entire session working with a legislator. In that legislator's office, they get to see not only Austin and how that world works, but they see how the legislature works. I think it transforms those students, but having those students in legislators' offices is really helpful to us as well. So we'd love to do more programs like that, maybe send some to Washington, D.C. It's a lot more expensive up there, and if you want to help us do that program, by the way, we're more than happy to have your help. But there are other things as well, those kinds of internship programs that get students in other cities, other parts of the country. I think they also learn what a special place the Valley is when they're up there.
Speaking of that too, I mean, there's also the aspect of sometimes universities drawing people in from other. I mean, how much of that is part of what you see the future of this university, if at all? I mean, how much do you want to extend your sites in terms of student pool beyond the RGV?
Well, of course we do, and it's important. It's interesting. For a long time, almost all of our students were local. We're beginning to see students come from other parts of Texas. First of all, we're the best, if you're looking for the best bang for your buck in higher education, we're it. Over and over again in Texas, people see us as the best buy in education that you can get. And so as that becomes clear to everybody, we have people coming from outside the region. Athletics has something to do with that too. Remember, we recruit athletes from all over, and football is a case in point. We were talking to someone the other night. He transferred from University of Kansas. Of course, they always bring their girlfriends with them, right? And so their families come. That's a great advertisement for the university around the country, and so all of that's very important to us, and it helps enrich our students' lives being around people from other places.
Last I checked, UTRGV was 4-0.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Question here from George from Brownsville. How do we care for the local environment and biodiversity while encouraging people from across the U.S. and internationally to come to Brownsville to support its development and growth?
I can answer for NextDecade. We focus on the environment as one of our commitments to the community. So as part of that, we have over 4,000 acres that we have purchased for conservation in perpetuity. That's more than 5 times our footprint for construction at the site. And one of those sites was one of those projects was just recently completed, the Miradores Mitigation Project. And that is a very special project that our regulatory environmental team completed just in May, because what that project did is create wetlands in an environment where naturally wetlands would be. And so, that will encourage the natural habitat for several species of the area. So it's things like that we do, take an extra step to support the environment.
I'll just add to that quickly. So in education, actually, this was one thing that had gotten me started in learning more about Texas education. There are several initiatives in aquatic science that teaches kids about how the environment works, why is it necessary to protect, preserve, and even, defend our natural resources here in Texas. So we're having courses for students that will teach them that method of conservation and just being good stewards of our natural resources.
Do the changing politics of the region or the state present a challenge in recruiting workers? And how would you convince people to work here if their politics are at odds with the policies at the state or local level?
I don't really see that as far as companies coming in and their ability to recruit workers to the area because of politics. It's 70, for the most part, companies coming into the area, they hire local, 70 to 80% of the people. That's case in point with our 2 mega projects that we have in the area. Politics never really comes into play. We don't see that. When it's business, it's business. So, and again, the people that are in the area, whatever political background they come from, to them, this is a job, it's an opportunity, and it's a career.
I'll just also say that, as I mentioned before, the Rio Grande Valley is like family. I sometimes, in a room and I'm the only Republican in there, but I've never felt that that there was any sort of disdain, because people want to hear that you care. And once you show them that you're that person that they could trust, that is going to be a good worker in their business, that's ultimately what employers need. And as residents here, they want to ensure that you're helping them as an elected official, as a leader, providing that atmosphere that they could thrive and support their families.
So I think with that, I'm going to turn the program back over to Matthew to close it out. But just a huge thanks to Karen and the University Marketing Communications team here at UTRGV. They've been spectacular to work with. So thank you so much. And with that, turn it over to Matthew.
Excellent. Thank you, Matt. And thank you for all the questions. I just want to close, first of all, by thanking these 4 panelists for their great insights and comments, and for hosting us here today. On the topic of politics at the end, one other thing I want to say, right, is one thing that I've heard from a lot of folks down here is talking about, how this region can sometimes be portrayed in the media or in our political dialogue, right? The border, of course, is a very important story nationally and statewide and everything like that. But one thing that I've heard from folks on this stage and elsewhere is that there are so many other stories to be telling about the Valley, whether it is education or healthcare or the private development and growth that's happening here. And the Tribune, I think one of the reasons we wanted to come down here is because we wanted to hear more about those stories and work toward those stories. I'm looking around the room to see if where Berenice is. There she is at the very back. So Bere is our Rio Grande Valley reporter. She has worked at the Tribune for a year and a half. Is that right? Yeah, and she is devoted on our regions team, built around the idea that the Texas Tribune, we cover state government, we cover state politics, we cover state policy, but you can't just tell that story from Austin, and you can't just talk about what politicians are saying about a region. You need to go down and you need to learn from people how the decisions that are being made in Austin or elsewhere are affecting the lives of people on the ground. And you also need to tell the stories of the people in those various regions for the influential audience that we have. And Bere, the work that she is doing is really devoted to that. And so I'd encourage folks to get to know her. She's our eyes and ears on the ground here and wants to be telling the stories of this region. All the different stories and the full stories, and we're excited to be part of that.
And for that, Matthew, the fact that you're here, the Tribune is here, we're very grateful for that, to be able to tell that story, because we are on the border, and no different than us all the way to El Paso, we do get that bum rap, right? But when you're here and you actually see what's happening and meet the people and see the progress, it's totally, totally different. So for that, we're very grateful.
Yeah, absolutely. We couldn't thank you enough for being here. It means a lot, and I think the more you're here, the more you'll learn to love this region.
Absolutely.
I also would just echo my colleagues in saying that I think this is what the founders were probably doing. They were sitting and having conversations. And, you know, just on the topic of politics, I think this region would serve and is serving as an example of conversations. Everyone is willing to have a conversation for the betterment of the Rio Grande Valley. And I'm always just so excited and proud to see that wherever I go, wherever, you know, there's a need for just knowledge of how things work, someone is always willing to listen and to give of their best practices. So I think that we really exemplify that and should be an example to the nation right now.
Absolutely. And thank you to the four of you for coming and being a part of that conversation. And we'll close it there. Have a great afternoon, everybody.